Today I've got something a little bit different. I'm going to be taking a look at the Wild Assent box set from Lazy Squire Games. Okay, so looking at Wild Assent from Lazy Squire Games. It's this heaving box. It is a fantasy board game for either 1 to 4 or 2 to 4 players. So inside you get this tray which is covered so you can store your tokens and cards away. We get 3 books. So we have the Hunt rulebook, which is a player versus environment game that is played either solo or cooperative up to 4 players. There is the campaign book, which allows you to play a story mode of the hunt. Again, that's your PvE. Spoilers there. So you don't need to play the hunt with the campaign, you can just set up random games using the Hunt rulebook and play a survival mode. So you've got 2 ways to play the PvE. And then there's also the Wild Assent Arena, which is a 2 to 4 player game where it's PvP, so player versus player rather than player versus environment. And again, there are multiple modes you can play the PvP version in, either deathmatch, last man standing, or a sort of survival mode where you get kill points, and then so you set your own victory point conditions for that. In the box itself then, we have a tray with all of the miniatures. It also has the card decks and the dice, and then each compartment has a little picture of the person in question who should be in there, so you can replace them when you're finished without having to play hunt. So that's good. We'll get into the figures in more detail in a moment. Let's just lift that out of the way. So then we have our game board, which is double-sided. So you have the wilds on one side and the arena on the other, along with the trackers. So they are life trackers for the ascents and the creatures. So that's quite cute. We also have the encampment board. And this is where you get your villagers and your buildings when you're playing the PvE game. And you set up your camp and go hunting in the wilds. And then we have all of our relevant cards and tokens. There are many sheets, but like I say, we'll come back to those in a little while. Okay, so I have 4 hero characters here, the Assents themselves. This is for the PvE version, and they range from a dwarf to a giant cat warrior to a cat huntress to a elven looking ranger with twin crossbow pistols. Interestingly, when you're playing the arena, they have a set of 4 different heroes for it, but then the PvE versions can be brought in as elite mercenaries, which is nice. Now this is the Kickstarter version, so they are, I think it's ultracast, it's a resin. There's a bit of cleanup to be done on them. He's quite clean, although I can see a few little flecks here and there, which the toothbrush will remove. There's no major mold lines or slippage on them, so the cast themselves are very good. Around the base there's a little bit needs to be taken away, but overall the quality of the casts is very good. There's a noticeable bit of flashing at the elbow there on our huntress, and again some more around the back. But even with that, I don't know if this is a one piece or if it's been pre-assembled. It looks like it's a one piece, which is impressive. The detail is very crisp. A lot of detail on there, which should make painting it up very easy. That's very nice. Yep, bit of a mold line running down the side of the face there, but you can't have everything. But overall, the heroes are, as you would expect, fairly heroic and particularly beefy. There's a definite amount of flash there. That'll need to be cleaned out with a knife. Now, I've got a selection of some of the creatures and things you will face in the wilds to take a look at. So if I just set our heroes aside, I won't go through the whole box because I'll be here all day. But what I will do is have a look at a few of them. So here we have one of the cat warriors, so one of the more dangerous denizens of the wild. And when you face them, they tend to come with a magic weapon or armor or some bit of kit, so they're harder to put down, but when you do, you get a bit of gear from them. Also, we have a phoenix. Some really nice detail on the phoenix. Beautiful sculpting, especially around the phoenix egg, sort of enveloped in the flames, and on the feathers. Good definition, not much in the way of flashing or mold lines that I can see on that one. I do know that they are planning on taking this to GameFound for a new campaign. However, manufacturing cost for these ultracast resins means they're not going to be going back to do them in this material again. I have had the chance to unbox some of the Storm Sunder preview models, which are PVC plastic, and the detail on those is excellent. So I think they're going to go for that, which won't be detrimental, I have to say. Compare these heroes to the Storm Sunder ones I unboxed. The details are comparable, and also the PVC ones are a bit more robust. This spear tip had broken, even though it was in that foam lined case. It just snapped at the hand from transportation, which you won't see with the PVC ones. So here we have a Griffin with 4 wings, so an unusual look to it. Lovely filigreed armour. Nice size. And here we have an ooze. Could be a water elemental. Whatever it is, it's wearing armour. I get very Warcraft sort of vibe from the elementals with the floating armour parts in amongst them. It's very nice. Particularly blobby, splattering it everywhere. I have here one of the larger creatures that you'll face. It's not right. It has a thing on the base, and I can't tell if it's protecting it or if it's just decided to eat it. Either way, it seems to be screaming out in horror. Again, some wonderful detail. All of these skulls adorning it. And then these could be eyes, could be buboes, whatever you want, running down its back tendrils, I suppose. They're not actually legs. I mean, it's a terrific sculpt. I think they are actually cast as one piece. Just seeing some more flashing right in behind the arm there. And I imagine that is because of how they've had to cast it, which is a feat of engineering in itself. So many undercuts. We have a demonic looking earth elemental, ready to smash his way through anybody who gets in front of him. A mixture of fire and stone. Again, a superb sculpt. Should offer painters a wealth of opportunities. And for people who just want a game, throw contrast paint on it and away you go. And finally, we have this Wolverine-esque character with their claws. One for the arena, I feel. Little even tufts of, I suppose, grass coming up from around the rocks, moulded onto the bases. Means every one of these is pretty much unique. There are smaller creatures that are replicated multiple times, like smaller oozlings and things like that, but overall the real standouts are the individual figures. Size-wise, these ones are around 32mm to eye level, some being larger, some being smaller, so the biggest of our heroes from foot to eye is, no, he's still 32. Oh well, maybe closer to 34. And our little dwarf is a mere 25mm. Yeah, 25. So standard-esque fantasy size figures. You could use them in other games, skirmish games like Brutality or Frostgrave, things like that. Very unique style with that cat people in the jungle sort of flavour to them. I mean, even the elf and the dwarf don't look like elves and dwarves that you would automatically default to. They have a sort of a punk-esque look to them. And that the fact that the wizard is a dwarf is just in and of itself. So, yes. Can look forward to diving into this further. Okay, so this is the first expansion for Wild Assent from Lazy Squire Games. And this is taking you into the village or town of Silvestrem, either or. So you explore that in the encampment phase in the standard game, but you're never actually really there. In the arena, obviously it's set there. The Shadow of Silvestrem adds allies and threats to expand Wild Assent, including new boss fights with a very big twin dragon and the owner of Silvestrem herself, Valsclea. Each fight will require unique strategies to overcome, pushing your Assents or Seekers to the limit. There's also some 3D terrain to replace the tokens from the standard game, excluding the pits. They're not that clever that they can burrow into your board, and it's intended for 1 to 4 players. So this is the expansion now. If I pop the lid off. So within this you get your campaign booklet. It is 22 pages long. Because it is a story-driven campaign, I won't go through it all. However, you can see there the scenarios that you'll be playing through, and then also the boss matches at the end. So the people who are there, also some expansion features like mercenary squads and the like. So this can be played as a prologue to the main game. So if you pick these both up together, then this complements that. I've already gone in here and removed everything off their punch sprues. So there's a little Wild Assent tray to keep your character cards and the like, including the new creatures that you will meet. So, having a quick look here, you have things like the Bog Skulker, Level Pinner, Defender and Berserker, and then also Wisp, Firelord and Wisp Swarm. Then more mercenaries. So we already had some of these in the core game, but now you have Okadis, Matsu, Barkelia and Serik and Drussus. So these pair here can also be used as seekers as well as arena opponents. The other are likewise seekers, but not arena opponents, just mercenaries, so you can find them in your game, or you can run into them in the wilds as sort of higher level bad guys, I suppose. Shift that out of the way, and you can see we also have trays of stuff. So you get your card deck, which contains new equipment along with the monsters and initiative cards for them. This is 2 layers, although the Twin Dragon props out through both, so I very carefully ease that off. You can see we have another set at the bottom that contains things like our Thornwoods, partial cover and the like. Okay, so very quickly just have a look at the terrain replacements. So these are tokens in the core game. There are 4 different types. So this is partial cover, heavy cover, and then a thorn bush. They're quite nice incidental pieces to replace the tokens with. Also, it helps see where these things are on the board, because sometimes with the green token bases on the green map, you can miss out on exactly where they are. Like all of the miniatures, these are a resin cast, I think single piece resin cast rather than pre-assembled. So detail's very good on them. Some slight cleanup required in places, but a nice addition to the set nevertheless. Just a little touch, not necessary, but just sort of gives you a bit of additional terrain for your tabletop. There are also a couple of the pieces from the arena as well, so you have the trap and the obstacle. And again, you know, a nice addition if you want to sort of dress your board up a little bit more. But nobody wants to see terrain, people want to see miniatures. So let's take a look at some of the new sort of Assents / Seekers. So here we have Matsu with this Oriental style katana. See, there's a little bit of cleanup to do under the sword there. Got a couple of lions on her back banners there. Nice sculpt, good level of detail on the armour. Nice pose as well. We'll need to straighten out the staff with a bit of hot water, but otherwise a very nice figure. Magical attacks rather than physical, which is a little bit surprising with the katana. There is her board if you want to see it, and obviously, like the other Assents, you have to unlock various levels of buildings in your camp to unlock the specific abilities there. But yeah, a nice change of pace, and opens up the world a bit more, having that sort of Asian theme. Then we have Okadis, our sniper, an elf with a gun. Very unusual. An elf with 2 guns, even more unusual. His secondary weapon seems to be a harpoon gun, which makes sense when you're attempting to capture creatures in the wilds. He also has his board. This time round it's ranged. A lot of dice. Very low base damage, but a lot of dice to roll. Also has precision, so they can assign damage with 2 specials, which is nice. And does get 2 damage bonus die, or 2 base damage bonus when the prey's below half health, so that's quite good as well if you're looking to take things out rather than capture them. I really like the look of the model. It's very different, just simply because it's not an elf with a bow, I suppose. Speaking of bows, we have a human hunter with a vicious attack bird on shoulder. We get quite a lot of Warcraft vibes going on with this, simply because hunters and their pets. So Seric, again, nice model, nice positioning, very crisp casting. There is some cleanup to do. There is some small amount of flashing in places, but they could easily be brushed off with a stiff brush. And I would suggest if you're painting these up to give them a bath anyway. But even down to the lamellar style armour with the small studs on it is very nice. Very nice indeed. And again, despite being a shooter, he's a different style of beast from Okadi's, and his abilities or skills that he can unlock are very different again. Finishing off our Seekers, we'll have a look at Drusus, who's probably my favourite because I'm a big David Gemmell fan. And if he's not been uniquely inspired by Druss as the Chaos Warrior, then, you know, maybe I'm confused. He does have a boss encounter in the book where he is in the arena leading a lot of the pit fighter style guards, and he has a very Druss-like feel to him, like a charging bull. You can see here there's a bit of flash there at his shoulder, which will definitely need to be gently trimmed away, but it's not particularly big. A brush could probably do that. But a lovely, lovely sculpt. Slight seam line just under that elbow. You clean that up with a knife. Just looking for the counterpart of it. Yeah, it just runs down the back of the leg there. Although, with it being the back of a boot, you can always get away saying it's stitching. Nice detail on knot snagger. And if you're playing Drusus, like the charging bull, he has all the base damage, so he's always going to be clobbering people hard. He cannot visit Silvestrem in your encampment phase because he's wanted. However, he increases the base damage of all your other Seekers because he's a veteran, which is an excellent passive ability to be passing on to people. So he's got that going for him. And he has a cleave, which makes perfect sense. The Blades of No Return, huh? Like I say, if it's not a homage to Gemmell's Druss, then I'd be very surprised. But at the same time, it's not just a carbon copy of Druss. He has that very wild Assent feel to him with the clothing, the loose sort of garb on him. Maybe he's more like Barden, Blood and Death. Taking a look at some of the creatures then. We have here the Firelord, who is a centaur type lava monster beast. Here we have his fluff, I suppose. On the other side you get his stats when you encounter him. Magical damage and a lot of dice. So you don't really want to be near him. 20 hit points, substantial, and he's fairly... well, he's not well armoured, but he's evenly armoured against both magic and physical damage, so a very different take on a centaur being the sort of lava demon, or a very different take on a lava demon being a centaur. I like it. It's unique, which is what I've noticed from a lot of the creatures from Wild Assent, that they are a unique take on sort of old tropes. Not a good detail on them. And again, if you're not big into your painting, you can get away with a wash and a dry brush on most of these because there is so much well-defined detail on them. Right down to that horns. Could be helm. Might just be his head with horns. Regardless, there's some interesting patternation on that as well. That's our Fire Lord. Take a look at one of the defenders. So there are three types. There's the defender, the berserker, and the, I think it's a pikeman. And I think there are three of each model in the box. They are fairly, they're all the same sculpt. So you get three of the same swordsman, three of the same berserker, whatever it happens to be. But interesting thing with the cards is you have the standard defender card, the standard creature card, if you will. However, on the reverse, they have a squad-based version, which changes up how they play really, and what they will do when they're in a combat. So I like this sort of variation. Just because three of them are together on the table, they could either be acting as individuals or they could be acting as a defined squad, which just changes up how you have to deal with them. So I quite like that. Something different from the arena. We shall also take a look at the Bog Skulker. Here's another weird, I suppose, aquatic-like creature. There were a couple of these in the core game of Wild Ascent, where you have these, even though you get the feeling it's a forest board, it's part of a wider world and you're just looking at the board setup. So having these things creeping out of rivers or out of bogs means you're not restricted to just having land-dwelling creatures. And it makes something a bit more interesting to paint up as well. I do like this with a big click-clack claw. It's got a sort of Godzuki-esque feel to him, for all you fans of the cartoon. Again, nice sculpt. Because of the single piece casting, there are some bits of flashing in unusual places underneath that you'll need to get in with a brush or a sharp knife to remove. But regardless, he's quite a nice piece of kit. And saving the best for last, the Twin Dragon. So I'm not taking his card out because I don't want to spoil the surprise for anybody playing through. But one dragon, two heads. This really unusual style that Lazy Squire have for their design. And I don't just mean in the twin heads, because we've seen twin-headed dragon, but this almost quill-like structure rather than scales. Again, for non-painters, very handy. For people who like their painting, you can really go to town with it. And he's a big boy. So if I bring in, obviously, board game piece, so he doesn't have to be the correct scale that the monster would be. However, he is about 10 centimeters tall to the top of his wingtip. And around 8 centimeters from snout to bottom. And if you look at him in comparison to one of our Assents or Seekers, you know, it's an imposing looking thing to come out of the heavens at you. Although to be fair, if anybody's going to attack it with an axe, it will be Drussus. Very, very nice. Will require a bit of tidy up around the back here. There are some flash and mold lines that just need to be taken off from below those quills, which is probably the only detrimental part of having so many quills. They're going to be places where it catches on the molds, so you'll have to deal with those. But otherwise, I mean, even the internal roof of the mouth is sculpted in there. And his tonsils, he hasn't had them out. So, lovely stuff. So that is the Twin Dragon for Wild Assent. So there we have it. Awful lot going on in the box. The fact that there's 2 games and multiple ways you can play each game with anything from 1 to 4 players means that you should get an awful lot of replayability out of this. It is currently going to GameFound, I believe, as a campaign to reprint it and also to add an expansion. So if people have missed out on this when it came up a couple of years ago, like I say, they've only just got this version out to people, and they're planning on going back and refining it. So it'll be interesting to see how the new sculpts come out. If they're anything like the Storm Sunder ones, they will be terrific. But let me know what you think below. And I'm going to move on, folks, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.